Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Welcome to week 13. Francis, how you feeling, brother?
Feeling great, John. Feeling great, baby. Coming off of a 1, 2, 3, 4 for 4 wins. I'm in 4 leagues, 1-4, John. As of right now, I'm in every playoff game, or every playoff so far. I just got to keep pushing through, man. How about you? What are you looking like, man?
Yeah, well, good for you, Frankie. That sounds really nice. I'm sure you sleep like a fucking baby at night. I do not, okay? I'm laying in bed, staring at Sleeper, wondering what in the hell am I going to do? I'm fighting for my life in every league. I've got good teams.
You do.
It's just a matter. I do. I've got very good teams. I've set them up perfectly. I made the right trades. I got rid of guys with the week 13 and 14 buys. I got a couple backup defense. I'm ready for the playoffs. I just have to get there, man. I just have to get there. I'm 6-6 in 2 leagues. High point man in one of those leagues. So I got to win these next 2 games, man. It's in my control at this point. I'm also 4-8 in one league. And let me tell you something. And this is a league, we've had a lot of these guys on the podcast. Yeah. Shout out to Ian. Shout out to Stone. Shout out to Tag. Shout out to Naz.
Naz, baby.
Yeah, Naz, I got your ass this week. And Stone, I got you next week. I have to win out in that league or I'm not in. That's all there is to it. I'm 4-8. I can sneak in. I can limp in, and hopefully I could do some damage on the stretch here, man. But man, it's tough. We play with some hard-hitting motherfuckers. You know that?
It's phenomenal leagues, Sean, across the board. Across the board, I got to give you credit, man. You have set up phenomenal leagues. So kudos to you, sir.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. I do appreciate it. Fantasy football, it's supposed to be fun, and God damn it, it is, man. Actually, talk to me in 2 weeks, and I'll let you know how fun it actually is. Welcome to the show, everyone. We got a great show for you today. It's week 13, guys. It is Bye-pocalypse. You know, they set up the schedule and they kept talking about they've run through AI and all these algorithms to set up the perfect schedule for the year. Who set this shit up? You got 6 teams on bye in week 13. I know they don't care about fantasy football, but they should. It's the reason why I'm buying all this shit. It's the reason why I watch every goddamn game. Week 13 buys. Come on, NFL. Come on, Roger, come closer to me, Roger. Fix this shit. Fix it, okay? It's bananas, man. All right, here we go. Week 13. Thank you for joining us. Follow us on social media, guys. Great follow on Instagram, Frankly Fantasy Football. Hilarious, some of the stuff Frankie puts out there. Love it, man. And there's good info, too. It's not just, dick and fart jokes, although there's a lot of that as well. I love it, man. All right, today we've got our Thursday night preview. We've got a little bit of Island of Misfit Toys, some guys that were on ice and fire, and we're going to talk about what do we do with these guys moving forward. Frankie's going to have some great insight for us on that. But as always, we're going to get to some news and notes.
The season that your listeners don't expect.
News and notes. Okay, the Panthers have fired head coach Frank Reich. This is the second season in a row, isn't it, where he's been fired mid-season? Is that right?
Yeah, it is,
man. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't know if that's Frank Reich's fault necessarily, but somebody's got to pay, and the GM's got and the owner have to do something here. And unfortunately, with one win, typically the head coach is going to go there. I don't think this has much to do with fantasy. I don't really think he should be playing any of the Panthers right now anyway. Okay, let's move on here. JT, Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Indianapolis Colts, is having thumb surgery. This kind of came out of nowhere early this week here. Colts hope he returns, hope in quotes here, in 2 to 3 weeks. So we're going to be without Jonathan Taylor here to finish your season, man. Zach Moss. Did you drop Zach Moss, Frankie? I do believe I saw that.
Can't even talk about it. I'm disgusted. I'm so disgusted with myself. The reason why I dropped him, because I picked up Zach Charbonnet thinking, might as well load up just in case Kenneth Walker gets a little bit more hurt. And I deserve this. I deserve it.
You do. I mean, how do you feel about Zach Moss moving forward? I mean, if you've got any fab left and he's still on your fab, obviously dump it for him. You're getting a starting running back in week 13 if he's out there get him. Looking at the schedule moving forward, we've got Tennessee this week, tough run defense. Then we've got Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and Vegas. These are teams you can run on. This is a pretty good schedule, pretty good lineup here, especially Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, leading into the playoffs. I think Zach Moss could be a smash play. The guy's been great. They're giving him the volume. He's done wonderful things with it. He's healthy. I think he's a smash play moving forward. If you have him, congratulations. If you can get him on the waiver wire, dump your fab dollars and get his ass.
Dump them out, boys.
Dump them out. All right, a lot of owners are going to be happy here. Justin Jefferson is practicing this week. They're on a bye in week 13, but he will be back, barring any major setbacks here in week 14. Here's what's really nervous here, Frank. First of all, if you had Justin Jefferson, you should have traded him. Hopefully you did and got some value out of him. He did. He was out a very long time. What's the situation here with the quarterbacks, man? I mean, Josh Dobbs really came down to earth this past week here. What do you think it's going to happen? Should you temper expectations with JJ moving forward for the last week?
Yeah, that's a good question, John. I'm still feeling very good about JJ. And the reason being is because 2 of those interceptions, maybe almost borderline 3, I'll give him 2.5, were not necessarily Dobbs' fault. They were tipped. They were thrown into traffic. So we have to take that into consideration, John. But they were tipped. They were bounced off another player and picked off. So yeah, he had 4 picks and it was shitty. But Josh Dobbs still throws the ball around. And that's why I like him for JJ. He's going to be a Jameis Winston-esque. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, he's giving you a 50-50 chance. We saw him try to do that with Jordan Addison down the sideline a few times. And it was just a poorly thrown ball. But if JJ's out there, knowing how JJ tracks balls, it's a little bit different. So for me, man, yeah, I think you need to temper expectations to a certain degree. It's not Kirk Cousins out there. And Kirk Cousins, the slander against him needs to stop. If anything that we've seen, he's certainly a top-tier quarterback in this league, and that's ridiculous for anybody to think anything else after what the product we've seen on the field for the last few weeks. So, John, I do think, though, it will be a little bit more than slight, come down from what it would be from Kurt, but I love the ability for the big play for JJ still.
Let me ask you this. Week 14, you've got Jordan Addison. You throwing him out there with JJ on the field too with iffy quarterback play? I don't know if he can support 2 receivers here, man.
That's a good question. It depends on how my roster is constructed. Depending on that week 14 bye week, you might have to roll out Jordan Addison or Johnny, depending on injuries, right? Maybe you've just been absolutely slaughtered recently with injuries, especially with Chris Olave going down and now Rashid Shaheed, and we're going to get to a few of these guys. I mean, the injuries keep coming, and so you might need to play Addison. The caveat is if there are no injuries and you do have other options, I'm probably looking elsewhere when JJ comes back just to see how everything pans out.
Yeah, I agree. I think you got to hope for Addison, maybe 3 catches and one of them's a touchdown. I mean, really, I think to get anything, I don't think they can support because TJ Hawkinson's a huge part of this offense. He's going to get his, and he's a great friend to not a great quarterback. They're always going to look for that tight end 5 yards down the field. So I just, with Hawkinson, with JJ coming back, I just don't think there's enough there, man. I don't think it's going to support 2 receivers here. All right, let's move on here. As you did talk about Chris Olave, we got some Saints receivers with some issues this week, man. Chris Olave in concussion protocol. Plan to be without him. Maybe he gets back, but again, with the concussions, they almost always miss at least 1 week with that. Rashid Shaheed likely out as well. All right, if you need a sneaky start this week, there's a couple of players here that are probably available, probably out there. A.T. Perry, he's I think the 4th string receiver on the Saints, with Michael Thomas being out as well. I think A.T. Perry could be a very, very sneaky play if you've got a bunch of receivers gone on bye this week. Also, don't sleep on Juwan Johnson either.
Yeah.
I think that for a tight end play, and as well as what's the Swiss Army knife, man?
Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill's, QB, tight end, receiver, running back, whatever the hell you want to call him, could be interesting this week. They may need to use him. So look to the Saints to help you fill in a few gaps here if you've got some bye week issues. All right, let's look at the Browns here. Dorian Thompson-Robinson with a concussion. Not likely for him to be out there this week. I think you might end up seeing Joe Flacco this week. What do you think of the Browns quarterback situation?
I think it's shit. If you want me to be completely honest with you, I think it's really bad. I think that we're, grasping. I think that the Browns are grasping at straws. I think that, there has been talks, rumors, I don't think it's going to happen, of maybe even signing an additional quarterback. And so for me, man, I think that Flacco brings a different presence. I think that there's an opportunity to be a little bit more of a game manager. However, I think it's a really shit situation across the board.
I mean, we saw Joe Flacco last year with the Jets throwing the ball 40 times a game. I mean, he was chucking the ball out there. So I'd give it a shot. I'd give it a shot at this point, man. I mean, it's just get somebody out there a little more level-headed, who's going to have a little more, maybe less, forcing the ball, maybe less running around with it. We know he's not going to do that, Yeah, I don't know. What it hurts is the next player here. Amari Cooper with a ribs injury. He left the game with ribs, did not come back. They don't believe it to be serious, but he's definitely questionable. So you're going to have to watch him throughout the week, see if he practices. Even so, with the quarterback situation, I'm really looking elsewhere this week, if you can, for Amari Cooper. Aaron Jones, running back for the Packers, could miss week 13 again. He did not play. A.J. Dillon took over the role for him. Kenneth Walker could return. They play on Thursday night. We're recording this on Tuesday. He did not practice, so that's not a good sign. He could return. Watch him. Highly doubtful, though. I think that you're going to want to throw him out there on Thursday night. Tee Higgins should play Monday night. Again, does this really matter that much? Right? I mean, yeah, great. This quarterback isn't. It's unlikely. It's very similar to what I was talking about with the Jordan Addison thing. Is this quarterback and this offense going to be able to support two receivers? Probably not. If you've got Tee Higgins, are you throwing him out there, Frankie? You probably have to this week.
Yeah, you probably have to. And again, your team is hopefully has shifted drastically from where you drafted him. But knowing where you drafted Tee Higgins, if you didn't. And assuming you haven't been very active on the waiver, you definitely need to fire him up because you probably don't have much there. And the Bye-pocalypse. So, John, because of that, you've probably been banking on him to come back.
Oh, yeah. Dallas Goddard, tight end. This one's crazy. He may play on Sunday. Isn't that nuts? He literally broke his fucking arm. He broke his forearm. Yeah. They're saying he may play on Sunday versus the 49ers. So that's really interesting. 49ers, believe it or not, they are a bit vulnerable to the tight end position. So monitor Dallas Goddard. Make sure he gets, full practice before he gets out there. I don't know if he's going to be playing with a club or some kind of, cast or what. I have no idea, but it seems pretty crazy to me. It's only been, 2 weeks, I think, since he broke his arm. All right, monitor that and check it out. I know if you've got him, you want to get him out there. Okay, let's look at the bye weeks here. All right, we've got 6 byes in week 13 here, Frankie. We've got Buffalo, Chicago, Las Vegas, Minnesota, New York Giants, and the Baltimore Ravens. Man,
there's no fantasy
that's rough.
There.
It's rough. Yeah, it's pretty brutal, man. You're missing a lot of receivers here. Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, Devontae Adams, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. I mean, it's rough, man. It's rough out there in these streets. All right, so let's talk about some guys. The Ice and Fire, the Island of Misfit Toys. What in the hell do we do with these guys?
Oh, Charlie, that's why I'm a misfit toy. My name is all wrong. No child wants to play with a Charlie in the box, so I had to come here.
Where's here?
We're on the island
All right. Here's our island of misfit toys, Frankie. We need your help to find out what the hell's going on and what do we do moving forward. Let's just start right off. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. We're going to put them both together. You think the Rams scored like 38 points or something, and Cooper Kupp had 3 points, 3 catches for 18. Puka Nacua had 4 catches for 27 with 4 points. Is this something to really be nervous about, or is it just getting used to having Stafford back, having both receivers on the field, and getting Kyron Williams back? Is it really just kind of game script? Is that a freak thing? Was Cooper Kupp a decoy since he came back so quickly? What do you think's going on here, man?
John, I'm hitting the panic button on Cooper Kupp right now. And it's strictly because even before the game before their bye week against that of Green Bay, he had 7 targets, but after the bye week, he had 1 target, 5 targets. John, this target share is dropping drastically from what it was at 12, 9, 7, and 10. So what this is telling me is in the games that he's having these target problems, they're top tier defenses. Look at who they're playing against. Well, actually, that's not true. They just played against Arizona as well, and he had 5 there. So that's not super great. But looking ahead here, they play Cleveland, they play Baltimore, and they play New Orleans. Now, yeah, they have Washington, and yeah, they end with the Giants. But those also, to me, aren't super smash plays. The Giants, yeah, but you got to wait to hopefully make it to your Super Bowl in order for that point. So, John, the problem here is with Puka's getting 8 targets, 9 targets, 7 targets consistently, 10 plus with Cooper Kupp back. So for me, I'm not so much worried about Puka Nacua as I am that of Cooper Kupp. And I know that's crazy, John. And here's some more data to back it up. Look at what Cooper Kupp has done, or listen to what Cooper Kupp has done, should I say, over the last, let's say, 5 weeks. 5 weeks. 5 points against that of again, this is half PPR, but 5 points against that of Pittsburgh. 4 points against that of Dallas. 5 points against that of Green Bay. Bye week. 1 point against that of Seattle. 3 points against that of Arizona. None of that is even remotely okay. And so, John, now we're walking into these defenses that are salivating. They have everything and then some to play for. And I'm really nervous. I'm very nervous about Cooper Kupp. And it's almost as if he's still not 100% healthy. And so I'm hitting the panic button a bit with him. But Nacua, I'm not at all. I think Nacua is going to come back to what he's been doing primarily the entire season as the number 10 receiver in half PPR. But Kupp, not so much, man.
Cooper Kupp's had 2 good games. He had 2 games when he came back, 16 points, 25 points. The last 5 games, just what you said, he never eclipsed over 5 points.
It's crazy.
5 games of not ever going over 5 points.
And great matchups.
Great matchups, yeah. I just, there's no way he can't be healthy, man. I mean, you look at, last week his snap percentage was 88%. He's usually at 95 to 100%. Mm-hmm. Cooper Kupp never leaves the field. He's not healthy, man. I think they're using him as a decoy, which is why you saw Puka get more targets than he did. I'm nervous about it too. I mean, if you're in a really shallow league and you have a bunch of studs, your teams are just filled with studs, I really wouldn't start Cooper Kupp until week 15 at Washington. Yeah. I mean, the Washington games where I wouldn't start him against Cleveland or against Baltimore if you've got other options. Now, you're in a 12 to 14 team league, you probably don't have an option. You got Cooper Kupp, you got to play. I have him as well. I'm not even considering, pulling him out and starting A.T. Perry or somebody in his place. If you've got him at this point, you play him. But I'm concerned. Absolutely. You're in a shallow league. I wouldn't play him these next 2 weeks. I really would not. All right, let's move forward here. Jaylen Warren, only 4 points here. Let's talk about him. We love Jaylen Warren.
Love him.
This really, now, if he had gotten a touchdown, I think it would have really saved his day. And gave him a lot better points because he was still involved in the passing game. He still ran the ball. It was very much a 50-50 split. Najee was just more productive.
Yeah.
So I was curious to see how things were going to look with a new offensive coordinator. And I mean, sure shit, it's the first time I think they've had over 400 yards of offense all season. It's the most they've ever had. I think it is the first time they've outscored as far as yardage another team. They've always had less yardage. All the wins they've got, they've always had less yardage than the team they beat,
Good job,
which
Canada.
is crazy. Yeah. Thanks, Canada. What about moving forward? Are you concerned with him? Are you concerned the new OC really likes Najee better, or was Najee just a little more productive?
No, I think Najee was just a little bit more productive. I think that's honestly what it is, John. I think that this is truly going to be very close to a 50-50 split moving forward. I think this is going to be, we talk about it all the time with the Melvin Gordon and the Austin Eckler, or the Javonte and Melvin Gordon in Denver a few years back. I think it's literally going to get to that level. And I think Jaylen Warren has absolutely played to that level to where he's earned that right. And I think Najee notices this. And so for me, man, I think that now with this new OC, they're trying to figure each other out. Najee's trying to do his best to not lose his spot. So, and every time Warren touched the ball, outside of maybe twice, he looked phenomenal. And so, John, I think that it's mostly just, it is what it is at this point in time. They're going to be 50-50 split. I still like Warren for the rest of the season, for sure.
I do too. I mean, it's really very much, I know we've said this all season, but the Zeke, Tony Pollard situation to where
Even better of a comparison.
Yeah. They're going into it, and you start both guys because his snap percentage hasn't changed. I mean, it's been 40 to 48, 40 to 50 every single game. So his snap percentage hasn't changed. He got 13 carries for almost 50 yards and 3 catches on 3 targets. So he's still as involved as he's always been. I think you just didn't get a big play out of him. That's all. He's a big play guy. But in my mind, moving forward, you've got Arizona, New England, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Seattle. All very, very favorable to run offenses here, to running backs. I say the rest of the season, I feel very good starting both Najee and Jaylen Warren going forward without a
John,
doubt.
to that point, we actually have a question coming in live. So we have a guy asking, shout out to Dylan Skamer here. He's currently vying for the playoffs and is asking, who does he start this week in his flex? Terry McLaurin against that of the Miami Dolphins, Jaylen Warren against that of the Arizona Cardinals, or Christian Kirk against that of the Cincinnati Bengals. In your flex spot, who would you start, Johnny?
With that one, I do like Jaylen Warren. I think he's the safest bet. Not that Pittsburgh's ever been one to boat race anybody and get way out in front, but this Arizona team is not very good. I think they're going to struggle against the Pittsburgh defense, and I think it's going to be a heavy dose of Najee and Jaylen Warren, man. I mean, I think it's a perfect scenario for Jaylen Warren to pop off a big run for a touchdown. And the fact that he's still got 3 targets last week, he'll get more targets this week as well. I think it's Jaylen Warren. I just think with Christian Kirk, and who was the other one?
Terry McLaurin.
And Terry McLaurin. Man, Terry McLaurin's really been tough. He's kind of been boom bust. That team's been up and down, and you're not really sure what's going to happen there. I think Jaylen Warren is the much safer bet. If you're getting your ass beat and you need, a huge bump, ceiling type of guy, it might be Christian Kirk, to be perfectly honest, to be the ceiling kind of guy for you. I don't know. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I'm torn, John, because right now I'm leaning Jaylen Warren against that of the Arizona Cardinals. I think that it's absolutely has beautiful opportunity there, but my only fear with that is the way Najee looked last week. Also like Terry McLaurin. I also like Terry McLaurin this week because of the game script. I think that Miami is going to potentially boat race the Washington Commanders. Now with Devon Achane coming back is what all signs are pointing to, is him coming back this week. And now Tyreek Hill, looking incredible. I mean, Waddle just absolutely insanely good right now. And Tua playing at an MVP level. I think that in order to even keep up with them, they're going to need to throw the ball. So the game script could be really positive. So for me, I'm leaning more of a safer play, a higher floor with that of Jaylen Warren. However, to your point, I'm actually looking at more of a ceiling play potentially for that of Terry McLaurin. But the issue is now Curtis Samuel's back, and we might talk about him here in a second. But Yeah, it's tough. That's a really good would you rather, and I'm slightly leaning towards Warren right now.
All right. I like that, man.
Thank
That's
you,
a good
Dylan.
one. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for reaching out. Please ask us questions, guys. We love doing this live on the podcast. All right, let's look at Joe Mixon, 7 points here. What happened to Joe Mixon, man? We're like, hey, you got a shitbag quarterback in there. Give Joe Mixon the ball. What's going on? But what's happening there, man? I mean, you're in
it's good
shallow
defense.
leagues. Are you hesitant throwing Joe Mixon out there moving forward in shallow leagues?
No, I'm not, John. And it's strictly because I think what he's able to do is I think he's able to move the needle a bit to where it's opening up enough for Joe Mixon. I think that's kind of been proven last week against that of the Baltimore Ravens. 2 weeks ago against Baltimore. And he even looked really good against that of the Texans. And actually, John, from week 8 on, outside of last week, he's been in double digits. So understanding Joe Burrow went down, right? I completely get that. But the Pittsburgh defense, I mean, dude, they were rock solid. I mean, they were down, so they weren't running the ball. He only had 8 carries. And even on just 8 carries, he still had 7 points, I believe is what it was, exactly in half PPR. So no, John, I'm not really that nervous. I think if anything, he actually might get more receiving work out of the backfield. So moving forward, guys, Cincinnati is not out of the playoffs either. They're totally still in the hunt. And it could be the Cincinnati miracle that happens to where Browning might be able to get something going. I think it's very far-fetched, and I don't think it's really viable compared to the other teams that are jiving for positioning. But looking ahead, John, they're playing at Jacksonville. They're against Indiana, Minnesota, at Pittsburgh, at Kansas City. So for me, man, I mean, this coming week at Jacksonville, I think it could be interesting. I think it could be a very interesting start if you need some help. I'm not saying it's a smash play. I'm saying that there's worse than that.
Okay. Adam Thielen, less than 1 point. 1 catch for 2 yards. Are we done with Adam Thielen? Is this fun experiment over? I mean, it's done, right? You can't play
You're so
Adam
happy.
Thielen.
Look at you. You have your shit grin on. You're like, fuck yeah. I'm so happy you're failing. You and Brock Purdy soon. The MVP candidate, Brock Purdy.
Listen, I never revel in someone else's failures. I don't. I knew there was no way this was sustainable. That's all I'm saying, man. That's all I'm saying.
You did call it. You did call it.
Hey,
and
it's better to be kind than to be right, Frankie. That is my mantra. Let's just start there.
there you go. Yeah, I think we're going against the Tampa Bay defense here, John, and knowing what they've done, they fired Frank Reich. I mean, I think you need to give it a week or two and then reevaluate here. It's going to be tough.
Agree. Justin Fields, 5 points. I mean, dude, my God, what happened to the guy who broke fantasy football for quarterbacks? It's just not there. It's just not there.
John, he's looks like shit. Like, it's not just like, it's not even there. It's like, dude, you're not even staying in the pocket. And when you're running the ball, now you're fumbling it multiple times. He's regressed, and I am a Justin Fields maniac fan. Like, I am all about this dude. Buckeye, came from Georgia, right? Like took us to the promised land almost a few times. And I mean, like, truly, I really like Justin Fields. Man, he is not making his case as to why the Bears shouldn't draft a quarterback. So it's tough, man. It's tough.
Well, he comes back in week 14, comes back next week. He's on a bye. They've got Detroit at home. They played at Detroit a couple of weeks ago, and he had 21 points. He was 16 for 23 with a touchdown, but he ran 18 rushes for 104 yards. I don't see Detroit allowing that to happen. I think that's a false stat line that I think is completely fluky. I mean, that's not something that's probably going to happen again. He's got Detroit at Cleveland. I mean, is this a guy you're wanting to put out there for your last 2 games to get you into the playoffs? I don't think so. Not against those defenses, huh? Yeah,
Oh, man.
Look for some streaming options if you can, guys. We'll talk about in our episode that comes out on Friday here this week. We're going to look at some streaming options for the rest of the year, for the playoffs, for tight ends, for quarterbacks, and for defenses, because I think that's what everyone needs to know right now. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But you may want to look at you've got a week off without Justin Fields. You may want to look at some other options there for those final 2 games. Saquon Barkley, 5 points. Tell you what, man. I moved Saquon Barkley at the right time. It was right before he had a really good matchup. I knew he was going to play well, but his looking forward for Saquon Barkley, it's just brutal, man. What do we do with him moving forward here? If you've still got him, do you have to play him? Do you have to every week?
I think so, John. I think so. Especially if you're in a 12, 14-man league, I think you have to. I think you're losing too much value. Unfortunately, just at this point in time, I mean, he's coming back after this bye week, going to be playing against Green Bay. That should be a good matchup. Then they go to New Orleans, which New Orleans defense, it was really good. Then it started tailing off. And so I'm not really sure what that's going to look like, but then it's Philly, and that's going to be brutal. And that's at Philly. And then they end on the Rams, which the Rams, again, very similar in the boat to me is that of the New Orleans Saints. They could be very good or they could be just absolute dog shit. So, yeah, I think, John, moving forward, I think that he's a guy that I personally would be firing up. I'm not super thrilled about it just because of the offense and all the turmoil happening and all this stuff. Apparently, word on the street is, John, they're actually trying to potentially look to drafting another quarterback. And so just with all these turmoil happening, it's really tough. But for me, I'm firing him up.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. All right, let's look at Tua, man. Tua only had 7 points, actually. What are you nervous about Tua, or is it just one of those things of, they had a different scheme this game, and they didn't throw the ball quite as much? What do you do? You still firing up Tua no matter what, right?
Firing up Tua, not even thinking about it. And here, you know what this is? Tip of the cap to the Jets defense. They have now locked up almost every single quarterback that has been in the MVP conversation. Think about that. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Tua, and many others. They have literally shut them down completely. So to me, man, that is a product of the defense because he still threw 30 times. He completed 21 of them. He only missed 9 passes for 243, and he still threw a touchdown. He had 2 picks on top of that. So, John, yeah, I think it's not so much a Tua thing as it actually was give your flowers to that of the Jets defense.
Yeah, Tua's been weird. He's the quarterback 12, so he's borderline quarterback 1 at this point.
Sure.
He started off lighting the world on fire. But it's interesting that 33 points, 12, 38, 11, 22, 28, 10, 27, 10, 21, 7. It's almost an every other game situation right now with Tua. He's just kind of alternating. It is kind of a boom bust quarterback situation. I mean, sure, he does it half the games, but this week we've got at Washington. I mean, it should be a smash play, right?
Great. I'll tell you what,
and according to his tendencies, he had 21 points and then 7 points. Shit, we should be back to 20 or 30 points at this point, right? The way he's been patterned.
That's right, John. And I'll tell you what, I even like his week 14 matchup against Tennessee. But you know what I don't like for those 2 owners? You have to go play the Jets again, week 15. And then Dallas is coming to your neck of the woods. And then you have Baltimore. Those 3 to end the year is absolutely brutal. So, but you might fire him up still because of game script. I don't know.
Playoff schedule is rough for Tua this year, man. Let's get to Austin Eckler here. 6 points, couple fumbles out of Austin Eckler. Are you nervous about Austin Eckler moving forward?
I am.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a little bit heebie-jeebie with him, man. And it's just there's a lot of weird shit happening with this Chargers team. And I just, across the board, the only one I'm really that high on, dude, is Keenan Allen at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. James Conner, 5 points. It's rough. What's James Conner's outlook looking, moving forward here? I'm a little nervous for James Conner. Is he one of these guys that you can spot start and it's not an automatic start? What do you think?
Yeah, John, looking at James Conner here, they're at Pittsburgh, so that's going to be not necessarily the greatest matchup in the world. And then they have a bye week, and then they have San Francisco, but then they're at Chicago, but then they go back to Philly. John, I don't like this. I don't like this matchup. I think you framed that perfectly. I think it's a spot start. I think if somebody gets hurt, I think if there's another bye week, Bye-pocalypse this week right now, you need to fill him in. I think that's when you're going to do it. I think moving forward, you got to be very, very careful with firing him up.
Yeah, I think this week you can run on Pittsburgh. They're not an extremely stout rushing defense. They're a great passing defense. You can run on Pittsburgh. Then he has a bye. And week 16, if you can make it that far at Chicago, then you play him. But I'm not playing him against San Francisco or Philly at that point. So hopefully you can have some other options there. Okay, Geno Smith, last one we're going to talk about here on ice. 2 points out of Geno Smith. Listen, man, we've seen a lot of bad quarterback play this year. It's more than I've ever remembered in my life. A lot of it due to injury, but Geno Smith, to me, this is another thing that I've called. I think he had an unbelievable story last year, unbelievable season, comeback player of the year, all that stuff. I think it's over. I think he's a backup He's a very, very good backup quarterback. And I think we've seen that this year. I think he's a Jacoby Brissett. Am I wrong with that comp?
I think he's a Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett, top tier backup. Like, you're paying for a backup. Now, he did get a $100 million contract, which, as crazy as it sounds, Sean, it's not that expensive for a quarterback. So he could be interesting, moving forward for Seattle. Maybe they go a different direction. Very, very good contract to pick up Geno Smith for a trade. But yeah, man, I mean, just looking at it, you cannot fire him up. For those listening, do not fire him up. They are going to Dallas next. We already talked about that on Thursday night. Then they go back to San Fran. They just played San Fran, and he had 2 points. They're going to San Fran now. And then they play Philly, right? I mean, that is ugly. That is awful stretch. So, no, you do not fire up Geno Smith at all for these next 3 weeks.
No, all Seattle Seahawks. What an unfortunate schedule to end the year. I mean, really, man. Dallas, San Francisco, Philly, Tennessee, Pittsburgh. Those are terrible defenses for quarterback, every single one of them. And same goes for Tyler Lockett. Same goes for DK Metcalf. It's going to be in Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. It's going to be very difficult to play these guys for the rest of our time playing fantasy this year, man. Really brutal. All right, let's get to some guys who were on fire, some guys who did great. There were a lot of guys, I'm not going to go through everybody, but a lot of running backs, a lot of studs. They had good matchups, and guess what? They performed well. I want to talk about some of these other guys that went crazy that, we need to kind of figure out, was this a fluke? Is this something we can continue to count on? Let's start with a couple quarterbacks here. Frankie, Jordan Love. All right, this is your boy. You've been riding him all year. Yeah, 32 points out of Jordan Love. What's his outlook? If you've probably got him as a backup, or you've got him and another guy you've kind of been streaming back and forth. What's it look like for the next couple of weeks here with Jordan Love?
Amazing. Guys, check it out. The next game is going to be difficult. It's the Chiefs. Outside of that, they play the Giants. They play a beaten up Tampa Bay defense. And then they play the worst team in the NFL, the Carolina Panthers. And then they play Minnesota. So, John, and that is a massive fucking game, right? That is a divisional game. They hate each other. And on top of it, that will mean a lot if Detroit loses. Right? So if Detroit loses and Green Bay ends up climbing up, they're really only a few games back. And so they're still vying for even a wild card spot. So, John, I love Jordan Love's back half of the year. This is such a big opportunity. And what he showed on Thanksgiving, the nuts on this dude, right? Absolutely huge. You walk into Ford Field on Thanksgiving and you do what you did against a very good Detroit team. Like, that was brilliant. He was brilliant. Flashes of true, real quarterback play. So for me, man, I'm all about it. I love his schedule. I think if you can get him, I'll tell you this, if you can get him over Geno Smith, do it. Play him. Yeah. That's a perfect example. Honestly, you might even play him over Tua Tagovailoa towards the back half of the year as well. And you might say, well, you're fucking crazy, Frank. Yeah, I might be, but I'll tell you what, he's the number QB9. He's the number QB9. Tua is 12. You got to delineate NFL to fantasy, right? And so for me, John, I love Jordan Love moving forward.
I think he's a wonderful guy. If you've got quarterbacks in really bad matchups, you've got Justin Fields, for instance. You're in a single quarterback league. Jordan Love's sitting out there. He's got a great schedule moving forward. Get him on your team for sure. All right, let's talk about Matthew Stafford. We got some life in this dude, and that's without Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, basically. Looking at Matthew Stafford moving forward, he appears to be healthy. My God, 32 points at Arizona. He was the QB7 on the week. 4 goddamn touchdowns, man. And none of them to Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. Just bananas. What are we doing with Matthew Stafford? How do you feel about him moving forward? We got Cleveland and Baltimore next.
John, it's tough. It's tough. I do not like him for the next 2 weeks, but I really like him for the back half of the 3. So if you can survive these next 2 weeks, maybe it's a plug and play. Maybe you have another Jordan Love or somebody like that. Maybe a Derek Carr even, who has a really favorable schedule. Derek Carr's a little tough with all the injuries, but you're picking up what I'm putting down. I think it could be a grand slam. I mean, he's playing, as you mentioned, Cleveland, Baltimore, but then he has Washington, New Orleans, and the Giants. Giants to end the year. So for me, man, I think it could be very interesting. It's not similar to that of Jordan Love, in my opinion. I think all the way through, Jordan Love is going to be much better. But Matthew Stafford, man, I mean, towards the back half of the year, the last 3 games, when you're in the playoffs, he could be a phenomenal start.
Yeah, I agree. He's got a really nice schedule ahead, man. Okay, we talked about Najee Harris a bit, 16 points out of him. We like firing him up. What about Chuba Hubbard? He had 17 points. Is this a guy that you can throw out here at all, or is this kind of somebody had to get some yardage, so it happened to be Chuba?
That's what I think, John. I think it's the latter. Yeah. I really do. And it's because he ran the ball 14 times for 45 yards and got saved by a touchdown. The thing, though, with him, though, he is catching passes out of the backfield fairly frequently. I mean, he was targeted, if I pull this up, he was targeted 5 times last game, 2, 2, and 6. So, I mean, he has been getting decent targets out of the backfield the last 4 weeks here. So, but John, for me, I'm staying away from him. It's just too much craziness is going on at this point in time.
All right, I want to talk about a guy that I think we just witnessed the breakout to. And Frank, you and I have been saying that this guy is someone you had to get on your roster and you have to wait on him a little bit. But it seems as if Patrick Mahomes seems to like Rashee Rice here. 21 points out of Rashee Rice. 10 targets, 8 catches for 107 and a touchdown. Do we finally have a guy? Do we have a guy that you can just put out there and start 10 targets from Patrick Mahomes? You're going to produce, man, right?
Yeah, I'm with you, John. I think you're exactly right. I think that this is the guy moving forward for that of the Kansas City Chiefs.
He was a wide receiver 3 this past week. He's got Green Bay, Buffalo coming up. New England, Vegas, Cincinnati in the playoffs. That's a nice schedule, man. That's a nice schedule. So hopefully I'm putting him out there. I'm auto starting him right now because I think he's just going to be able to do it until he proves me wrong. But let's go. Let's go, Rashee Rice. Let's look at another guy, Curtis Samuel. He's back, man. 15 points. When this guy plays, he's really producing here. With the schedule coming up, Curtis Samuel, he almost seems kind of schedule proof to me, playing out of the slot like that. What do you think about Curtis Samuel moving forward here?
Yeah, John, I think you're right. I totally think you're right. I think that Terry McLaurin is taking is taking, quite a bit of heat for the first, the stud cornerbacks of the opposing team. And I think that when Curtis Samuel's healthy, he's basically making Jahan Dotson null and void at this point in time. So for me, man, I think that he's a nice cozy blanket for that of Samuel Howell. And looking to the next few weeks here, he's playing Miami, which could be very interesting. Based on game script by week 14, but then he has the Rams, the Jets, San Francisco, and San Francisco. So, John, I mean, he might be able to get you to the playoffs. I ain't firing him up if against that of San Fran or Dallas. I'm not doing that. Or what was it? Jets. It's actually Jets, San Fran, and they end their last week on Dallas, which would be one game past the Super Bowl. But Jets and San Fran, nah, no, thank you.
The other guy I want to talk about, the last guy here that was on fire, Pat Freiermuth, 17 points for tight end. Is he? I think he's the number 1 target on this offense right now. Anytime he's been in, it just seems that Kenny Pickett goes right to him, man. I mean, this guy is just a fantastic start moving forward, right?
Smash start moving forward. Like, guys, new OC coming in. They need somebody else other than Deontay Johnson. George Pickens has just been, if you're not hitting him for 40 yards down the field, he's not really catching a ball. So they need somebody in the middle of the field. And Pat Freiermuth looked phenomenal and against a very good defense. And so, John, I think that he's a smash play moving forward.
I agree. All right, let's look at the Thursday night football preview here, Frankie. We got the Seattle Seahawks, who we've been kind of shitting on all day today, at the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are favored by 8.5, over under 46.5. All right, lay it out for me, Frankie. What are we thinking here, man? What's this game look like?
John, I got to be honest with you, man. I am not willing to start any Seattle Seahawk this week. The reason being is because even in DFS, I don't want to do it. The reason being is because if you are fighting to get into a playoff, there is a better matchup waiting for you. DK could pop off. He could. Jackson Smith and Jigba could end up having 4 receptions for 50 yards, and he ends up getting 5 or 9 points or almost double digits. Absolutely could. I am not willing to put my fantasy season on the line for this specific game going against the Dallas Cowboys defense, John, which right before we were just talking, before we started recording, guys, they're the number 1 defense. They are the number 26 overall player in fantasy football and half PPR right now. A defense is number 26. Guys, they are averaging a defensive touchdown every other game. They have 6 this year so far. They had, I think it was something like 30 some sacks, John. It is truly remarkable at what this defense is doing without Leighton Vander Esch, right? Into their one of their stud linebackers. So for me, man, at Dallas, Seattle having to travel, Geno Smith is banged up. Kenneth Walker is banged up. You got a rookie running back who's trying to find his footing in Zach Charbonnet with a team that is a decent team in Seattle, but not good against that of Dallas. So for me, I'm sitting all Seattle Seahawks, and I am firing up Tony Pollard, firing up CeeDee Lamb, firing up Ferguson. And you know what? I'm firing up Brandon Cooks, man. Brandon Cooks quietly has been dominant, John. Very, very good. Actually, I'm going to pull this up. This is what was so interesting about Brandon Cooks. As I was looking at this, John, in the last 5 weeks, since week 8, he's had 12.7 points, 1 point. He's had almost 30 points, then 6 points. And then he's had 15.2 points. So, John, he is not necessarily, in my eyes, a complete boom bust because he is averaging 8.8 points a game in half PPR. And with the amount of targets that he's getting is decent enough to keep him relevant. So, yeah, man, I would rather start Brandon Cooks than maybe even some of the other guys that we had mentioned even earlier on in the ice segment, fire segment, and certainly over that of the Seattle Seahawks this week.
Brandon Cooks, since week 6, has scored every other week like clockwork. Every other week. So, yeah, he's involved. I saw him on the waiver wire, actually, in one of my leagues, and I'm scooping his ass up. I just think with all these receivers that are out on bye this week, I think Brandon Cooks could be a really good play, man. And then moving forward with the schedule, it looks really good for receivers. Seattle, Philly. Yeah, I know Philly defense, but for receivers, Philly defense is actually very vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's a favorable matchup. Buffalo, Miami, Detroit. I mean, these are all really good matchups for a team with a good defense who can throw the ball very well. So, yeah, I mean, I think Brandon Cooks looks really good moving forward here, man. Love it. Yeah. Anybody else on this matchup on Thursday? I mean, it's almost start all your Cowboys and sit all your Seahawks. That's unfortunate, but
yeah,
it kind of seems the way it should go, right?
Totally is, man. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this unfolds. It's minus 8.5, like what you said, over 46, under 46.5. Man, don't I look at my chops with a tease there. And everybody laughs. I get it. I'm teasing Frank. But here we go. I'm going to take minus 2.5, John, and I'm thinking over 40.5. That is what I'm thinking with that.
I like that, man. I like that. That sounds like a slam dunk to me.
35-13 type of game.
I think the Seahawks will be lucky to score 13, to be perfectly honest with you.
They could.
Just hopefully it's a better game than what we saw on Monday night. That was just absolute garbage. Jesus. First team to score a touchdown wins, guys. Actually, no. The Bears won that game and did not score a touchdown. That
takes
stupid.
effort. That
It's
takes
stupid.
effort.
Yeah, what do you think you are, the fucking Pittsburgh Steelers? That's crazy. I hate that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. I hope we gave you a little bit of insight this week and gave you some stuff, some guys that most people don't usually talk about. But good luck to you this week. Frankie, good luck to you this week. Thank you for beating my ass last week, too, by the way.
Anytime.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring it up, but, I like to publicly shame myself. As long as it's building you up as well, I'll do it. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Don't forget, you can follow us on social media, guys, on Instagram at Frankly Fantasy Football. And I know you all listen to us on audio, on podcasts, everywhere they're found. Please go to YouTube, subscribe. We just need the subscribers. We're building something here, guys. Subscribe, hit the notification button. It really, really helps out the channel. So we appreciate your support. Frankie, you got any parting words for us, brother?
Guys, pay attention to the coming schedules. We are going to hit on this very, very hard again on our episode that's dropping Friday. It's going to be the starts, sits, that hit it and quit it. So enjoy your time, enjoy getting ready, and get ready for more coming up here leading us to the playoffs, baby.
Good luck on the Bye-pocalypse in week 13. May the fantasy gods smile upon you. Bye.